Welcome back to Kaulignation, your one-stop shop for all things Kaulig Racing, Dingernation, SVGNation, Nation, and don't forget we have our new YouTube channel, NASCAR Nation. Go check it out. Subscribe over there. We will be doing a little bit of Kaulig coverage here and there over there, but primarily the rest of NASCAR, including SVG. So check out that channel over there. We have Phoenix this weekend, and God knows how incredible Kaulig Racing runs at that racetrack. I'm obviously being very sarcastic there. The question I have for this video in terms of our multiple choice question is, do you think AJ, Dillon, or SVG can finish inside the top 20 this weekend at Phoenix? There's some inspiring things to talk about in this video, but as a betting guy, I have to say no. It's not me knocking them. Just going off of history, I have to say no. I hope I'm wrong on all three fronts. Joining me as always, it's Ryan. What's going on, man?
Man, not too much. We're coming off of a race weekend where I thought we had a real chance to win. We're now going into a race weekend where I would be super stoked with a top 20. Big fall off in expectation. Phoenix just notoriously is a bad track, so I've been kind of trepidatious about this one for a while. We just got to peel the Band-Aid, right, and get it over with. And I hope we found some speed. It sounds like the organization's confident we found some speed. Maybe this one welcome combination is going to really pay some dividends, and we'll see some changes that we haven't seen in years past. But I agree with you. Until they show something that we haven't seen, I'm not super confident that we're going to be very competitive this weekend.
Kaulig Racing in the Cup Series, man, runs around 30th place here at Phoenix. I wish I could sit here and say it's much better. They did run a tiny bit better in the fall race. You know, part of it was due to attrition, but there was a little bit of improvement there. I do wonder how much of that had to do with Dillon's crew chief, Andrew. I forget his last name. It's slipping my mind.
Dickinson.
So he was involved in those later races there. Can't say I have a lot of faith in Trent Owens to come up with something here because he's struck out with all the cars and all the drivers. But you add in Dickinson. And the other thing we look at here, and Chris Rice mentioned this morning that he thought they could go there and the goal is to run top 15. I was sitting here thinking to myself, that's a lofty goal considering how you've run there. And, I would have said if you can get both cars inside the top 25, it might not be a win, but it would be a pretty big improvement where they've consistently run. They basically waved the flag on this race last year by having Derek Kraus in the car. And I believe Kraus ran one of the races either the year before or the year before that as well. Or maybe it was Josh Williams last year that ran one and Derek Kraus ran the other. Either way, the results were not good for whoever was in the car at Phoenix. And Daniel Hemrick as well. I think the one thing we got to look at, and as the thumbnail points out, is we talked at length about Kaulig needing to poach some of the Stewart-Haas staff that was leaving with the changeover there. They went and got one of their lead engineers, Mike Cook. Mike Cook, his main work was with Chase Briscoe, Eric Almirola, and I'm forgetting the other driver that was mentioned in the press release. Either way, teammates with
was it Gregson?
It might have been Gregson. I'm not sure. They mentioned it in the Kaulig press release, but teammates with Kevin Harvick, who is incredibly good there. So Mike Cook would have learned a lot. And honestly, the performance of Chase Briscoe on that team in the Cup Series is very good at that track as well. It was also good for Eric Almirola. So we're not talking just like top 20 finishes. We're talking it finishes inside the top 10, top 7.
Yeah. Race win for Chase Briscoe.
Yeah, so this guy has at least some knowledge on what you need to do on this track. So I'm hoping that the results transfer from paper to car here when it comes to Kaulig. Obviously, he's not going to have everything. He can't just wave his magic wand and fix everything, but Mike Cook might be a significant player here, man, with Kaulig Racing this weekend.
Yeah, that you bring up a good point because I didn't even really contemplate the fact that he was worked with Stewart-Haas, and Stewart-Haas has kind of had a good handle on this track for frankly, a decade plus, as you said, going back to Kevin Harvick, where he won practically every race there for a 3 or 4 year stretch. So that does definitely give me a little bit more positive vibes that, he at least has a good understanding of what they need out of the car. And again, one thing about short tracks in general, Phoenix, of course, being a prime example, is really in the front end geometry, how you set up, the stagger and all of that with the front suspension makes a lot of difference with how good your cars are at these types of tracks. And considering how limited, they are in terms of a sandbox with the setups and ride heights and all those things, you have to really maximize the front end geometry. And tell you what, if Mike Cook or even, additional folks, because it wasn't just Mike Cook, Chris Rice did mention that they brought in several new staff for this season, whether they came from Stuart Haas or elsewhere, we don't really know, but they made a concerted effort to really add more talented people, which is what we were clamoring for last year. And if that can translate into some stronger results, man, I'm super excited. And at top 15, if that's the team's goal, then I will share in that. And that's kind of, the target they kind of put on the back there. And, we don't, I wouldn't be disappointed if they didn't get a top 15, but I certainly would like to see them at least sniffing it this weekend. And if they can do that, that does set up positively for other short tracks and frankly, the rest of the season, where I think we both have some inclination that there's a possibility of AJ making the playoffs. And these are tracks he's got to get better at.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's run good at Phoenix before, just not part of Kaulig Racing. So he's actually got a pole at Phoenix. So, it's and he's got multiple top 10 finishes there. But again, not at Kaulig Racing in the Cup Series. So we'll see if Kaulig has gained ground. I'd tweeted out, or whatever you want to call it, posted on X today. Like, I wonder if one of the reasons here is Mike Cook, coming over from Stuart Haas. They've had a ton of success at the track. You mentioned, there's obviously a bunch of other names involved too. Mike Cook's just gotten the headlines in terms of the offseason moves for Kaulig, but could be a big player. And Mike Cook actually took the time to reply to us in a tweet, as you'll see here on screen, saying they feel very confident about their chances this weekend. And, I took my shot. We've not thrown any punches here, but we've had a really hard time getting a hold of Kaulig PR to get guys on the show. So why not just ask someone when you're speaking to them directly? And Mike Cook said he'd love to come on the show. So hopefully we'll get Mike Cook on here when he has the time to do so. Obviously, he's a very busy guy, but that's exciting. I want to move over to SVG a bit. I don't know how well you remember the Xfinity Series races last year at Phoenix, but SVG loved using that runoff area. I mean, some of the drivers do, some of the drivers stay up, but he was dive bombing the shit out of people. And there's a big part of me that wants to see him continue to do that in the Cup Series, maybe even ruffle some feathers. He is in the same boat, though, as AJ and Ty Dillon. He's going to be working an uphill battle here this weekend. I don't think anybody should be expecting SVG to run top 5 or even top 10. If he does, fantastic, celebrate. But he's probably going to be in a dogfight to finish in the top 20, maybe the top 15. But I think people need to keep their expectations in check. And if he has a rough weekend, 25th to 28th, this is just a really hard track to figure out. And especially once they added that runoff area, the shortcut, if you will, which really changed the dynamic of this track completely. There's no other track in the sport that's like this one. I don't like it personally. This is one of my least favorite races on the schedule. And it's not just because Kaulig Racing isn't good there. I just don't like it. It feels like we're playing a video game where we're cheating and taking a shortcut instead of staying on the actual racing surface. I like old Phoenix. I know that might bore some people, but I'm really excited to see what SVG does this weekend, man. He might not get the finish, but I think he's going to have some exciting racing. And if you have access to his in-car cam, I'd get watching it because I think we're going to see a lot of dive bombs this weekend.
Yeah, I really wish that shortcut through the dog leg actually made a discernible difference. This thing's been around a while now, and every time somebody tries it, they might get to the inside of the car, but they don't have the angle into the turn to make it stick. So that's disappointing because I think they actually really wanted that to be a passing zone, and it's kind of not, but it does look really cool. So I guess from that standpoint, I am excited to see it on TV, especially the restarts. The restarts are always crazy, and opens the door for some contact and some opportunities to make passes. So those are going to be the chances that SVG and all of them we're going to have to take to make something happen. Again, this is the first real oval that's not a speedway. So how does Trackhouse unload? This is our chance to see where Trackhouse is performance-wise. This is our chance to see where Kaulig is performance-wise. And listen, if Trackhouse unloads and they've got a really fast car, I think SVG can wheel it. It's going to be really hard. The track is difficult, as you stated. So I'm super excited to see him take it on and take the challenge. It is not my favorite track either, I'll be honest. I just don't like fast, short tracks. If you're going to be at a short track, I want you to actually slow down a little bit. I don't like Richmond either for the same reasons. So performance-wise, once they get stretched out, it kind of turns into a bore and nobody can really pass each other. But it should be exciting for the restarts anyway. So again, I don't have a lot of high hopes. And if they do get strung out and they're running in the 20s, they could go a lap down pretty quickly. And then your day kind of goes downhill from there. So you got to stay out of trouble. No mistakes. Try to stay top 15, top 20 if you can. And if you can do that, I think any three of those drivers, Kaulig, RCR, Trackhouse would be pretty happy with that and move it along.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. The question is, how do you think SVG, AJ, and Ty Dillon will run this weekend at Phoenix? I'm tempering expectations, but I can't say that Chris Rice and Mike Cook didn't get me a little excited this morning. They definitely did. And I think SVG, with his road course mentality, can definitely make the dive bomb work in that shortcut. It's just, it's really hard to make it stick. We've seen some wrecks there for sure with people trying to take the shortcut. We'll see what happens. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all. Check out our other YouTube channel, NASCAR Nation. We do have a Patreon coming soon. That link is not actually, I do believe that link is active at the moment, but there's nothing up there. The Patreon link there. Check us out on Facebook at Kaulignation, Dingernation, SVGNation, Nation, NASCAR Nation, and Kaulig Racing. For Ryan, I'm Sean. Have a great weekend.